you know what it looks like sitting in a
Yeah.
home being like, damn it, what are these
Yes.
prerequisites that they don't know what they are? And
Exactly.
I'll know this.
Exactly.
I need to update the
Exactly.
finances 3 days later. Why didn't you tell me that when I was at
Mhm.
the house? Like, you know
Well,
what those things are. Like,
not only are you selling solar, right? But then you have to shift and sell financing. I mean, financing is a sale in and of itself.
yeah.
And so being able to understand that, hey, this rep just spent the last half hour to an hour selling solar, and now they have to transition and sell the financing, that's a huge piece to understanding that shift and the delicacy of that and the delicacy of this sale.
All right, everybody, this is Sam Taggart with the D2D podcast, and I have a few little announcements, and my assistant just brought in my favorite drink, a matcha, because it's badass. And before I jump in and introduce our guest today, a couple of things coming up. We have our business boot camp, April 19th and 20th in Denver. So if you're in Denver area, I mean, people fly in from all over to come to these, but we're moving it around. This is the first time we haven't done it in Utah. We've done 30 business boot camps over the last few years, and it's a 2-day event for business owners and leaders to learn the business systems of recruiting, training, and onboarding, and scaling a company, and getting culture and motivation and systems to really be a really good direct sales operation. And it's been one of our highlighted events every time we run them. And we have about 60 business owners at our last one here in Utah. So if you're interested in that, hit us up on our website. And then I, every time do these things, I'm going to give you a challenge. And the challenge this week is to start to reflect on your guys' core values. So something that's been kind of in my message over the last few months for myself. And this morning, this is why I'm bringing this up. This morning, I landed on my final 4 core values, and I was like, yes, that's it. Cause I'd been ideating with a few words, and I finally was like, these are the ones. And it's been a 3-year process, and I kind of reshifted them back in Guatemala with the mastermind group we do. And this morning, it all came to me. So I'm on like an all-time high, because when you figure out your value systems, it makes it way easier to be aligned and run with life. So that's your assignment today. Now we're going to introduce our awesome guest. We have Miss Emily Wilson, and I have an interesting story with this one. So I'm going to dive a little bit more into this here in 2 seconds. But she's an account executive over at BrightOak. They are a loan company and a finance company for the solar and home improvement industry. And what's really cool is my very, very, very first time consulting. Like, I'm talking, I need to bring this back. She's in Missouri, and there's a guy named Chad, a buddy of mine, who calls me. I'm still the VP of sales at Solcius. And I get a phone call from Sun Solar, right? That was the name of the company you guys were at. And he calls me. He's like, hey, how much would it be for you to come out and consult? And I was like, I don't even know if I can do that. Do I get in trouble if I do this? So I call up my owner. I was like, hey, can I consult in Missouri? We're not in Missouri. He's like, yeah, it's just one day. He's like, I don't care. Like, go do your thing. And I was like, okay. So I get a phone call, and then he's like, well, how much? And I was like, oh, that just sounds epic. I get to do a training for you in Missouri. Like, I get to come into Missouri. And he's like, oh, I'll buy you a football game. So we went to the Kansas City Chiefs game. I was going to do it for free. And then I call my mom, and she's like, oh, you better not do that for free. Like, hell no. And I was like, she's like, you're way worth more than free, Sam. And I was like, what? And this is a story you don't know. This is why I'm telling you. And
I love it.
And then I was like, I don't know, $1,000. He's like, done. And I look back to that, and I'm like, I'm not $1,000 anymore, guys. This is back in 2017. And, but that's where I got my start, and I loved it. I made a difference. And Emily was a sales rep in the solar company. She was out slinging. She was one of those front row students. She was the, I look back and I'm like, there was a lot of people in that room. And I was like, yeah, you got a bunch of duds. And then you had some studs, and you were like super active, super participative. And so this is 2017, guys. It's been a minute, 5 years ago. And anyway, so that's how I got introduced to Emily. And since, she's gone on an awesome journey. We've stayed in touch, and now has formulated, like, this company is formed from the conflict that these solar companies kept having when it comes to solar financing. And I remember they were all creative and they were going through credit unions and they're figuring out ways to challenge the dealer fee, challenge the process of approvals. And it's cool to watch this journey of this finance company get birthed. And I've been kind of there, like on the sideline being like, yeah, you go girl, let's see it. So anyway, that is Emily. Now we can talk. Welcome to the show.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah, no, I definitely remember that meeting. I remember you coming in, your energy level was off the charts. It was exciting. You had all these awesome different avenues to explore. It was great. I mean, it definitely was a training that stood out to us. And for those of us that took it and ran with it, like you said, it was definitely epic for sure. So glad that.
How'd you get into selling? Like, when did you get recruited into door-to-door or solar sales? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's probably a similar story for everybody, really. If you're kind of in this industry, meaning, in-home sales or consulting, you kind of just always have your feelers out, right? I mean, you're always just kind of like, what can I do to make a difference? What can I do to continue to educate myself and grow? And so I'd been doing alarm sales. I'd worked for ADT for about 5 years. So I was in alarm sales, was very successful there, loved that, did both small business and residential. And then I had a friend that started at a newer solar company. It was the first solar company kind of on the scene here in Southwest Missouri. And we had a really great rebate in the area from one of our local utility companies. And he was like, listen, this is going to be an awesome opportunity. It's a great way to get into the industry with a reputable company that's going to make a mark. And he was right. And I'm super thankful that I got that invite. It was really kind of just a blessing that was handed to me, and we ran with it. And it was a wild ride, and it was a blast. It was a blast. So couldn't walk away from the industry.
So you've been in this industry 10 plus years, it sounds like?
2015.
Yeah. Wow.
2015.
Well, that was solar, or was that?
Yeah, I started solar in 2015.
Started in ADT though. That's still this industry. These are alarm.
True. Yeah, very true.
Like, that's what I'm saying. You've been selling in the sales world since.
So 2010 is when I started with ADT. Mm-hmm.
Wow. See, I started alarms in 2008. What's crazy is like, I want a big shout out, women empowerment. Like, let's go. Like, I love seeing girls slay in this industry. I just had a girl hit me up. I'm doing a podcast, I think, with her on Friday, and she just got in this industry. She's in events planning, wedding planning, and now she's already top rep in the first 6 months. And anyway, so I love seeing one, that, and two, just the way that you like study people's journeys. And you just, 10 years ago, if you'd imagine you're literally sitting at a desk job running in this finance world, and you're just like, oh, wow.
I know.
And so a little bit about BrightOak, and then I'm going to dive back into the selling world in a little bit.
That's the fun part anyway.
Yeah, we'll get it. Like, I guess tell us what makes you guys different, what you do and value you bring to the world for those that are listening and kind of understand what BrightOak is.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just do a quick synopsis really on BrightOak. Really the key thing that attracted me to stepping into the financing realm outside of the sales realm is that BrightOak was founded primarily on other solar experience. So a lot of, I would say we're half of the people who work here at BrightOak, including our president, started in the solar industry. So I knew it was a company that while it provided financing, it also really understood solar, and it understood the challenges that even the day-to-day reps and the companies out there face. It wasn't just primarily focused on the financing aspect. It was also focused on the sales.
You know what it looks like sitting in a home being like, damn it, what are these prerequisites that they don't know what they are?
Exactly.
I need the finances 3 days later. Why didn't you tell me that when I was at the house? Like, know what those things are. Like,
not only are you selling solar, right? But then you have to shift and sell financing. I mean, financing is a sale in and of itself. And so being able to understand that, hey, this rep just spent the last half hour to an hour selling solar, and now they have to transition and sell the financing, that's a huge piece to understanding that shift and the delicacy of that and the delicacy of this sale. So that was really what was exciting and intriguing to me here, is that it wasn't like I had to come in and convince, hey, this is a grind that we really need to be sensitive to. They already knew. They already knew there were gaps in the industry, one of which being kind of a comfortable or an easy to sell lease. And so that's really where it kind of birthed from, was being able to provide a lease option that was easy to understand, easy to explain, and really customer driven and customer focused, still kind of giving that control, because you and I both know the solar sale is really about giving that control back over to the customer. So if that's what we're preaching from the moment we walk in the door, your financing has to be in line with that too. So even down to the lease, we try to give control to the customer from that aspect. So it's been fun. It's been really fun.
That's awesome. And so here, I guess for anybody that's listening to this, that's running solar, it's always important to keep your options available. And when it comes to financing, for one, funding's different. Two, interest and dealer fees are different. Three, your actual customer experience and, the technology and the way that it flows into your system is so important. So I'd recommend anybody to go check out BrightOak as an option to throw into their tool belt. And I've worked with these guys; they're awesome. And so anyway, I want to say that, but I think anybody listening to this, they're probably selling solar. They're probably running a solar company. They're selling roofing. They're selling something, right? Mm-hmm. What's interesting and why I thought Emily would be a really interesting guest on this podcast was because of her 10 plus years in sales, and now in the solution of, helping the sales world and seeing it from such a different lens. Like when you come at it from, I'm serving the sales companies versus I'm the rep that's bitching about how the freaking loan didn't get approved, even though I have a 720 credit score. They're like, their credit score is this. It's like, but it's You're like, they paid those off last month. Like,
right.
Yeah. Had I waited 3 weeks, it would have freaking qualified. Then you never think about it.
Yeah.
So I want to speak to a couple key problems when it comes to selling financing and getting credit fails and getting stipulations and getting, objections in the home when it comes to interest rates, or I don't like debt, things like that is kind of the focus, because your sales background can speak to that. And then your financing creativity can speak to that as well, which brings some interesting insight. And I'm speaking, if you're a roofer listening to this is something you need to for sure listen up to, because there's so many roofers out there or home improvement people that shy away from financing. They're like, I'm either insurance, cash, or I don't do it. And don't even look at the option of like, what if the homeowner is willing to pull out a loan and do this? You know what I mean? And so I'd highly recommend they pay attention to. So let's go. Are we ready? Are you cool going down this rabbit hole?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, run with me on this.
Okay.
So first one is, I'm sitting in the home and a customer says, I really don't like to go into debt. What kind of ways do you frame financing when it comes to maybe solar home improvement to help them alleviate that kind of objection?
Sure. Well, I think there's a couple ways you can do it, honestly. I think from just a sales perspective in general, it's helping them recognize their current situation. So their current situation is there's a leak somewhere in their finances, regardless of whether they're aware of it or not. Something I used to always mention was, from the time we're kind of young, we're kind of conditioned that a utility bill, and I'm speaking specifically to solar a little bit here, but we're conditioned that a utility bill is just part of life. It's just a bill that we're always going to have. It's part of just growing up and being budgeted into. And so really kind of reframing that mindset of, it's actually an option. It doesn't have to be a leak that you have to budget for every month. So as far as not wanting to go in debt, you don't even realize the leak you already have. You're already in debt. You're already paying this out. I'm providing a way to put parameters around that debt and offer a solution to eventually be done with it. I think, it just kind of helps the customer relook at the situation they're in a manner that gives them, again, kind of that control to decide what kind of debt they have, because they're already in debt to a degree. But now I'm just providing you another option.
The word leak. That's a good word. You have a
financial leak, in their budget that they just have been conditioned to expect, really, since, again, childhood. It's just part of your bills. You're going to pay your mortgage, you're going to pay utilities, you're going to pay gas, trash, and they don't even think about it being an option. So as soon as you can kind of help them see that it's an option, then it's just, again, trying to help them decide what kind of debt they want.
Yes. Okay, so now you're in the home, and I know a lot of reps that just pitch one thing. We sell a 25-year 299 or whatever they pick, whatever option, right? Some reps present 12-year, 20, 30, they give cash. Like, I guess what's your 2 cents on overcomplicating with variable lengths and variable interest rates and giving them just one option? Like, I'm curious your sense and feedback on that. You know what I'm saying?
So it really is a delicate dance. And I do talk to reps about this too when I'm doing my trainings, in that, there's that balance of providing enough information to where the customer feels educated, but not providing so much information that you actually create more questions, right? Because we want to make sure that they're educated, making a decision that they're comfortable and confident in. But we can open Pandora's box. I mean, we can set ourselves up for, the endless questions and I think I need to think about it, right? So for me, a lot of times what I would do is I would understand all of my options I could provide. But from the minute I'm walking in that door, I was always trying to evaluate where my customer was wanting to land, where their comfort levels are. Are they already talking about payments? Are they already talking about end game? Where are they going to lead me to where I can kind of hone in on maybe the top 1 or 2 products that would benefit them, to where I could present it in a manner that was like, based on what you're telling me, I have a product that really fits your needs. And this is the one I would maybe talk to the most. Now, if they start having questions around that again, maybe was going to lead me to something else, you can easily pivot and say, I'm glad you brought that up. We do have this other option. So I think in your mind, if you can get it down to 1 or 2 products to allow yourself, the flexibility to pivot if you need to, but B, again, you're the expert. You're there. They asked you to come in to tell them what's going to be best for their situation. So, I just kind of data collecting from the start.
So let's kind of role play that out. If you were to walk me down kind of a basic question train, I'm customer, you're sales rep.
Yeah.
What would be a few questions that you could ask to help get those data points to then be like, got a solution for you. Here you go. Sure.
So a lot of times, I think what will kind of guide you is as you're having that conversation with them and as you're talking with them about their current situation, they're going to already be telling you these things, meaning as you're talking about their mortgage, are you the homeowner? Yes. We paid off our house last year. We're super excited. So that's obviously going to tell me that they don't like that. They really want that more of a cash option or more of a shorter term option. Or if they're telling me, we're just really trying to get the lowest payment possible, then that tells me they're more of a payment person. And so I can kind of start asking them their comfort level on payments. Again, it just talking to them about where they're currently at. So I would say a lot of questions are really going to still be customer driven. I think being a listener more than anything is probably the biggest key than having the right questions to ask, because the customer is going to tell you what they need. They're going to tell you where they want to go.
Yeah, because the ship that you're trying to drive in my head is they care, like, especially if you're in a bidding war, because this is where you can kind of manipulate, right? So think of like, am I in a bidding war or am I bidding against myself?
Right.
I can manipulate interest rate, total cost of system based on dealer fee, length of term, and then, product within that, right? You could say, well, obviously they're selling a 360 watt panel and I'm selling a 250 watt, or whatever, vice versa. So I can kind of manipulate a few things. And so, kind of the check boxes, it's like, do they care about saving money right away?
Right.
Do they care about paying this off fastest? Do they care about they just are on autopilot and they just want to have like a bill swap? Do they, you know what I mean? So like those kind of things are things in my mind that check the box. And then it's like, I can then guide their direction. So like they're sitting there going, well, you're $10,000 more, or you're $5,000 more than the last guy. And it looks like this is a 6-digit system. Why are you I'm going to go with them. And then you could say, but watch this, boom, 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 boom.
Sure.
You can sell them on why they should pay an extra $10,000 because they get more of a tax credit. And you're
Right.
like, great, your cost is $10,000 more, but then you get more of a tax credit and you have a lower interest rate. So over time, and then you kind of show them that, and then they're like, oh, okay, I can see why spending $10,000. Where in their heads, nobody's bought a car and been like, I want to pay $10,000 more,
Right.
But I've
Yeah.
been able to sell homes. And this is what's so important about understanding financing and the way to manipulate that in the home is maybe I'm going off of lowest total. Like there's times where I tell people, I'm like, let's get you a no dealer fee, 7% interest, shorter length. And I'm selling them on that. And they're like, well, that's not that great of interest. Well, that's because in my head, so it is great interest if I'm going to get a business loan, if I'm going to get a home equity, certain types of loans, 6, 7, 8, 10, 8, 6, 7, 8%, great interest rate. But what happens is the sales rep comes preconditioned that they've been selling 2%, 3%.
Right. Agreed.
They're projecting this, I can't sell 6%. Where it's like people sign up with credit cards all day at 15%.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think you really hit on something when you're saying projecting, because one of the early things that I was taught and that I had to really break out of the mold of in my early days was not selling from my own pocket, right? Not selling from my own mindset, not selling from my own perspective. And that's hard because that's who we are. That's just how we've evolved. But again, if you step back and let that customer kind of direct that conversation, and then you educate kind of like what you're saying on the fact that, solar is one of the only industries where their interest rate is not a direct reflection of their credit score. So a lot of times when they're looking at those, they're like, but my credit score is almost 800, why is it a higher percentage? And so if we can educate on the fact that, solar can have kind of a seesaw effect based on different factors, and that, here again, it all goes back to that control, Mr. Customer. We can control some of these factors. We just need to find for you what's the best fit and what you're the most comfortable with. So, whether again, that's end game, like, are you wanting to pay this off as quickly as possible? Or you want to see the most savings as possible? Or are you needing to be comfortable today? Are you needing some relief today? And so kind of having those parameters in place, educating them on the fact that it's not a direct reflection on your credit. Don't be offended at this interest rate, because that's a lot of times what it is. It's defensiveness. It's, just being slightly offended that why did I get that interest rate? I have a great credit score. So I think that's a factor.
Yeah. And if you think about like even a factor that may play into this is I'm moving in 3 years. So they're like, that plays a factor in like, okay, then this thing's either going to get transferred and it's going to get reset into a new mortgage. Right. It's going to get, you know what I mean? And you're doing a refi. Okay, you're going to do a refi. Then you just want the slowest cost, like 7%, 12% interest over 1 year is a lot better than $10,000 more at a high dealer fee. You know what I mean? So this is where I'm not trying to overcomplicate this for the listener by no means. But what I'm trying to say is most solar salespeople or finance salespeople don't understand time value of money. They don't understand total cost, including interest and amortization, right? Like don't understand the factors that play in. So I bought one fourplex at a 15-year, one fourplex at a 30-year. And the difference is, in watching how my 15-year, so then I could pay. So I did the math and I'm like, I did the 30-year mortgage, but then prepaid and got it paid off in 15, right? So I could overfund, So most people don't look at this as I'm selling a financial product.
Right.
Where if you looked at solar as I'm saying, I'm selling you a tax product, I'm selling you a financial savings product, I'm selling you a system essentially that's replacing your current system. And most people look at selling solar as I'm selling you, new electricity. And I'm like, no, I'm selling a creative way to reallocate money you're already spending. Let's talk about that creative way. Yeah.
I'm selling you control and options and flexibility.
But right now your one control and option is rent your power.
Right. Yeah. And I would definitely agree with that. It kind of goes back to that balance, and it's just you as the consultant knowing all of this, educating yourself on it, but then knowing again how to deliver that to your partners or to your customers. so that they feel confident that you really did take their needs into consideration, because at the end of the day, that's all they really want. They want to know that you listen to them and that you're providing them something that really is going to be more beneficial. One of the statistics I think we all find kind of interesting is that it doesn't really matter the term of the loan, because the average loan, mortgages included, long-term, big purchase loans, average lifespans between 7 and 8 years. So, I mean, the chances of them taking that out to full 20 or 25 year are very slim. So it's smart to think about, the resale or the refi options, because I mean, it's statistically proven that they're just not going to take it out to that 20 to 25 year term.
So be my customer. I'm going to walk you through a scenario that happens super often.
Sure.
They go, 25 years, I'll be dead. And I can't even fathom that, right?
Right.
So the simple way that I like to explain it is, hey, Mr. Customer or Miss Emily, it sounds like if you were to move tomorrow, would you buy the home that you moved into cash, or would you finance it? They would say,
obviously I'm going to finance it. Yeah.
Great. And would you do a 30-year mortgage on that?
Of course. Yeah.
But you're going to die. You're never going to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just
right.
How we do it. And it's
right.
like, just helping liken it unto their mortgage is a very easy way to help them build a kind of like bridge. It's kind of like this, and helping them see the simplicity of, hey, you're going to move before the end of this. So stop thinking of this. And this is where most people think of solar as the end. Like, once the loan's paid off, then I get my ROI because the whole thing is paid off. And I'm like, you don't look at real estate that way. Once my loan's paid off and the end of this 30 years, I get my ROI. You look at the ROI the moment you bought that and made the decision to own it versus not rent it. And helping reframe homeowners' minds to you get an ROI the moment you chose to own your power versus rent your power, not at the end of 30 years, you dink. Because always looking, you know what I mean? Like, don't look at I get my ROI once my mortgage is paid off. Paid off by somebody else getting a new mortgage, not by you finishing out the term.
Exactly. Well, and I think it's different because solar is one of those things. And again, I'm speaking specifically to solar here, but I mean, it's one of those things where the real value is not in the equipment. It's in the power that's being produced. And so trying to help them understand, because that's another hurdle is, well, I'm going to have 25-year-old equipment at that point. Don't I need to, upgrade my equipment? And it's so helping them understand that no, you don't, because it's producing the same amount of power that you need. So as long as it's still producing, and it will continue to produce, the value isn't in the equipment, it's in the electricity you're getting. So you're going to continue to get that benefit. So you don't have to look at that 25-year term or equipment or anything like that as a D value, because it only increases in production value. So that's kind of a different way to help them. Again, there's a lot of reframing that comes with solar, just because it's still a relatively new concept. I think one of the last statistics was like the United States is still only at a 2 to 3% solar penetration. I mean, it's still so small. We've got these pockets where it's really, really exploded, but to look at, nationwide, it's still relatively new. So it's still a lot of pre-framing that you've got to kind of re-educate around.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit. You run their credit. They fail credit. What do you do? How do you?
So BrightOaks specifically, which is what I love. I mean, I'm glued to my phone. I'm watching that all day, every day, because you and I both know the pain point, right? As soon as we see that decline, we're instantly on again in the home, because eyes are shifted to us. I just got declined. Why'd I get declined?
How do you break it to them? Like, call this 800 number one day.
Right. So, we really are very sensitive to declines. We take a second look at every single decline. We're looking for errors. We're looking for ways to overturn it. And we're looking for options to give you as the rep to help your customer. So we are a little bit different in that we're a true bank. So we're FDIC regulated. So customer privacy is top priority. So we do have to deal a lot with the customer, but again, being very sensitive to you as the reps, understanding that you're still in the hot seat. So when we look at those declines, we want to try to give you options. So a lot of things, again, the way that our financing was designed was with the solar industry in mind. So while let's say we have a decline for an application and maybe it's looking like it's DTI. One really great thing about BrightOak is that we allow you to gross up your Social Security or disability. So we're going to call and say, hey, was this an income that we need to gross up? Or B, did you really count all of your household income? We allow any of our applicants to count any household income. So if somebody is living there contributing to your bills, you can count their income. They don't have to be on the loan. They don't have to be on the lease. We just understand that they're contributing to that utility. And so we'll allow you to count that. So we really try to look at the industry specifically and kind of the gaps that have been in there. And we truly look at it as a debt replacement. So we aren't counting this project towards their DTI because we understand it's going to be replacing a bill. So we try to build in some of those buffers and parameters to help prevent a decline in the beginning. But we're also going to watch that knowing that that may be not normal. And so we want to call and say, hey, did we look at this? Did we look at this? Did we look at this? And we try to exhaust all efforts to make sure that.
And how many times, like this is crazy. Let's say you get 10 declines and 3 of them even just like, wow, we just moved some stuff around and now they're inclines. Accepted, whatever you call it. Declines, inclines. Get accepted.
Flipped it.
Approved. Yeah. And how much money is that to me, to my company? Like, that's a big deal. And, knowing that you can have that interaction with the bank is important. And then, so let's say still declined, you exhaust that.
Yeah.
How do you deliver to customer and what is your follow-up process to see, is this person still in your radar long-term? What do you recommend for sales rep?
So one thing that I think is really overlooked and that I really tried to teach my team when I had a solar team underneath me was never look at a decline as the end, because essentially a decline is an approved sale. I mean, is a yes, right? You got the customer to say yes. You sold them on solar. You just couldn't provide a means for that sale. So a decline to me is never the end. It's a pipeline for you to revisit. So one thing that we like to do is if I'm talking with the customer directly, or even if I'm talking with a rep, I let them know, Mr. Customer, our inquiry was only a soft pull, which means I didn't ding your credit. So that's not going to be affecting your credit just because you tried to apply with us and it was a decline. So understand that you can reapply with us in the future. I highly recommend you taking a look at your credit, seeing if there's anything on there that you can possibly adjust or work on. And then let's revisit this in another 30 to 60 days. It looks like you've got a great project set up with your solar company. It looks like it's going to save you a lot of money. So we'd love to be able to finance this for you down the road. Let's set up a plan to reconvene in another 30, 60, 90 days. And, I'll try to pre-frame that based on just what I know with the customer directly. Yeah. I mean, if they've got a lot of work to do, I may say, hey, let's take a look at this in another year. No. But still pipeline. Yeah, for sure.
Pipeline. So this is where I built a software called Vanilla Message, and it's a texting drip campaign.
Okay.
This concept.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I, as sales rep with ADD, am not organized enough to remember it in 9 times out of 10. So what's going to happen is new solar rep is going to knock that door and they're going to be like, well, let's try again. And they're going to get it approved like that. And the customer's like, done.
Yeah.
So you don't want that. So what you do is you go to vanillamessage.com if you're interested, and you would set up a text campaign, maybe in 30 days. Hey, just checking in. So, here's some fun facts about solar. 60 days. Hey, let's retry your credit. Hey, 90 days. Hey, I haven't heard from you. Or whatever that looks like. And all of a sudden through automation, you've got customers now reaching out to you saying, yeah, oh my gosh, we can. I think it's better now. I actually got my credit karma report saying it was $750. It was just, I paid this off or whatever. And that element is so critical to getting an extra 5 to 15 deals a year or 20 deals a year. It depends on your volume. And it didn't cost you anything. It was just free, smart system to put in place for follow-up.
Right. Yeah.
And then also there's companies out there that do credit repair that I've seen customers go through the journey of credit repair that you might want to connect with. There's a company called Wipe. There's a company called, there's a couple of them at DDCon that's what they do. They help customers get their credit improved. Okay. So next question.
Okay.
what is a good retention after they've got loan doc signed? There's a lot of cancellations. There's a lot of people that get cold feet. There's a lot of people that, back out. Where's the teeth that we have to retain customer? What's a good process? Because it's like 6 weeks or 6 months sometimes to get a solar install.
It can be. Yeah.
Do you have any good advice to keep customer engaged, still feeling like, man, I just signed up with this $30,000 loan and I don't know, this is a good idea. They talked to grandma and she's like, you're an idiot. You're like, I am an idiot. Like,
or grandma talked to the grandson. And
exactly.
Yeah.
So you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Give me good advice there.
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes back to anything really, setting those proper expectations for the customer. So that way they understand that this is a lengthy process. Also making sure they understand how many different wheels have to be turning in order for this to reach completion. A lot of times customers don't realize that the solar company and the financing company are two separate entities. They look at it all as one. So what we try to do is we do a welcome call, which I know can instantly make reps scared and nervous. I mean, I was one of those reps. If I had a financing company that told me they were going to do welcome calls, like, well, I'm not using you. So I brought that to the table here. And I was like, hey, when we do our welcome call, we've got to make sure that it's a true welcome call. Like, we're just excited that you're a part of the family. And so our team does an excellent job of just making it a true welcome call. And I think that does a couple different things. It lets the customers know that if they don't hear from the solar company or they don't hear from their rep, they've got another means of communication line that they can reach out to and say, hey, do you know what's going on with my solar system? And that's not to say that they're, not hearing from the solar company, but they could get an email from the city saying your permit's been approved or your net metering application's been approved. And they don't realize that, again, that's just another wheel of that project moving along because they don't understand the intricacies that go into place. They think, I bought solar, you put panels on my roof and you turn it on. So for us to really set those expectations that, hey, there's several companies involved, there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of approvals, there's engineering, there's all of this going on. You may get updates from not me directly, and that still means that your project's moving forward. So again, just trying to really provide another means of communication, another avenue for the customer to feel more comfortable and understand that it is truly a solid deal, right? Because they're going to feel a little shaky. It's a big purchase. And it just helps, again, validate the process and the sale that was just made.
Love that. Okay, we got to wrap up. So I appreciate your nuggets and fire. This has been a really good conversation that I don't think people like. It's not the conversation in sales talk that we talk a lot of times. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the technical stuff that the closers never talk about or teach.
Sure.
It's like, oh, well, that just comes with experience. I'm like, well, can we just give you some answers on like, these are kind of key points in selling this and closing it up? Because it's that last little boxing match that you run into.
It is.
The difference between people selling a lot and a little is how well they would handle in the fifth round of the boxing match when these little technical conversations come up, right? So guys, like I said, if you're interested in BrightOak, go hit them up. Awesome people. And Emily, you have been a awesome guest on this podcast. I'm excited to hear.
It's been fun.
The listeners, and we appreciate you in our community and doing things to solve a need and innovate and find ways to continue to strengthen this direct sales and solar world. So and home improvement. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time.
Okay, we'll see you guys. And thank you guys for listening. Like and share this if you got some value. Go hit up Emily. She's awesome. And we'll talk soon.